What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Altitude Show. I am your host, Dave Brinker, presented by Mountain Tough. Mountain Tough is the fitness app that I use to get my body in order and my mind for the fall and just life in general. I've been doing it for approximately 6 months now, and I have never seen better results. I love it. I'm addicted to it. I do it about 4 times a week. They have a program for everybody. A fitness program for everybody. It was specifically designed for backcountry hunters, but backcountry hunting is just another sort of endurance sport. It's if you value being in shape with your body and mind, you can use the Mountain Tough app, and I use it to get in shape for the fall. And I feel great. I can't vouch for it enough. They have their on-ramp program for people that are just starting. They have their minimal gear daily that they put out every day and delete it every day. They're always sort of revising and evolving these workouts. Those minimal gear dailies are honestly what I do the most, because I don't always have an hour and a half to devote to the full program. I try to get those in too, but on the days when I only have 35, 40 minutes to get a workout in, those minimal gear dailies kick your ass. I went and did one. They filmed it, and it was brutal. And I've done a bunch of them, obviously, over the app. So do those. Do whatever you can. Moving your body is better than not moving your body. So even if you can't commit to the entire program, it's worth signing up. Use my code DAVE to get a 10% discount when you sign up and subscribe to Mountain Tough. You will not regret it. Trust me. Today we have my friend Cory Ford on from Angry Spike. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, David?
You're sitting in a hotel room in Boise, it looks like. It's a wonderful hotel room. Is that a Holiday Inn, or what do we got?
No, I'm big time. This is a Marriott. We are at the Fairfield Inn in Boise, Idaho right now.
Whoa. Slow down, big timer.
Company dollars. Yeah, company dollars.
You travel a lot, right?
I do. Yeah, I cover 5 states for my job. It just happened to be some of the worst states in the country to travel in. You know, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Alaska, and Montana. So, fortunate for me, I get to be in a lot of really, really cool places all the time for work, which is nice. But down here for a couple days of work. Oh, go ahead.
What's your job? What do you do?
I work for a medical device company in ophthalmology and optometry. So I sell a device that treats the disease of the eye. So I'm in and out of doctors' offices visiting with surgeons and optometrists all day long. Yeah, that's what I do. I have
what disease? Like, what are we talking?
Meibomian gland dysfunction and dry eye disease, which is actually something that is probably well overlooked in the hunting industry, because evaporative dry eye is something that's very, very common, especially in scenarios like with us when we sit with our eyes open, glassing for long periods of time. If you don't have the proper oil layer of your tear film, then it causes a lot of issues with that, the tears evaporating. And if as you sit there and you glass for a while, you finally start blinking, your eyes feel really gritty and they kind of burn. It's kind of an interesting thing that there's a parallel to it with what we do from a hunting perspective too. And recently I had a long conversation with Ryan Lampers. Him and Hillary have been looking into developing a new product for eye care stuff. And so we actually kind of nerded out on some issues that he's been having with his eyes, kind of a similar thing. And you get that blurred and fluctuating vision when your tear film is unstable. It's just harder and harder and harder to keep your eyes open for long periods of time without wanting to really blink. And so it's kind of crazy that there's a parallel in what I do from a living perspective to then also, over into my hunting part of my life as well. So
you're talking about like when you're glassing and you for long periods of time and you come out and you like your eyes are dry, you're a little blurry. It's just kind of feel kind of off kilter. That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Yeah. And how does that turn into a disease?
The meibomian glands, which are the ones that produce the oil layer of the tear film from the actual glands within the eyelids, they will over time become either atrophied or obstructed in some way, shape, or form. And unless you either remove the obstruction to minimize the atrophy or not, then it is a cascade of events that happens that turns into what they call an ocular surface disease. And that ocular surface disease, in the past, when it was not real well known as to what it is, was considered just a syndrome. But now we've got a lot more etiology behind the actual disease state to be able to classify it as a multifactorial disease state based on several different things that come into play. Older women get it when they are premenopausal and they're hormonal, but it's a lot more common in younger people now, especially with the amount of screen time that we have, spending time looking at our cell phones, working on the computer, and then environmental factors at play too. You factor all that together, and a lot of people suffer from it. So evaporative dry eye is really common. You blink a few times, and if you can't keep your eyes open without them feeling dry for more than 10 seconds, then you've got some issues going on. So
no way. So
yeah.
how, that's a very specific profession that I didn't realize was so rampant that you can make a living off selling devices for this disease I've never even heard of.
Yep. Yeah, there's a couple of devices in the space that I'm in. I'm in the thermal treatment device space. I think I have basically three other competitors. There's four of us in the space, but yeah, it is a very niche market. But it's amazing how many people actually suffer from this. And the more and more you expose it, the more and more you find out people have it, similar to like watching a TV commercial. Now it's like 80% of our TV commercials feel like they're from a pharma company, and they're telling you all the signs and symptoms of what you might have. And by the time you get done watching the commercial, you're like, damn it, I've got ulcerative colitis or something. I know it because everything they said I've got, and Crohn's disease or whatever other things there are that people, pump into the marketing with the pharma stuff in this country. Like everybody thinks that they've got the issue. Well, it's not that they have it. It's just an awareness that maybe some of those things are true, but at least then it gets people talking about it. Where in the past, a lot of people didn't always talk about certain things like, God, my eyes just feel really super dry. Or if they consistently water, that's another one I have. And I think that was Ryan's issue, is that he gets, he's constantly watering when he's out in the field. It's because the oil layer, the tear film, just doesn't keep anything there. So it just evaporates off instantaneously. So your lacrimal glands that are responsible for producing the aqueous layer or the water layer of your tear film just keep pumping. And once they pump for too long, eventually they just stop working. And once that happens, you can't ever really make a tear again. So kind of an interesting little piece of the body that has a major impact on a lot of things.
Anybody who's glassed for long periods of time has had all the things you just described happen over and over and over. It would be cool. Shout out to the Lampers for a product that kind of helps with some of that stuff. That would be awesome.
Yeah, and of course there are drugs out there, but they're not specifically designed for what we do. People can use artificial tears and things like that. There's immunomodulators, but they're not designed for specifically what we're doing, which is, an eye health, overall eye health thing. And I think that, people who, if you take fish oil, high levels of EPA and DHA fish oils, really, really good, pure quality stuff without very many other omega-3s in it. One of the best things you could do, obviously, is, as hunters, we eat a pretty meaty diet, and generally high fat diets tend to keep our reservoirs full. Where you find with people who don't, or if they have substituted a lot of seed oils for their fats in their diets, you end up finding that they don't produce very much of the actual natural lipids that you want to. And then on top of that, it also creates an inflammatory reaction within the body. As you've seen seed oils in the last 5 years have really kind of come front and center on systemic inflammation and things like that. So there's a lot of factors that go into it just from our diet. But, luckily for us as hunters, we do eat a fairly high fat diet, even though a lot of our meat's very, very lean. There's still good animal fats that are in it.
The seed oil thing is a bit annoying, to be honest, in a good way. Meaning, if you start seeing all this stuff about seed oils or the devil and all these things, but if you start reading labels,
it's in everything.
It's extremely hard to avoid them.
Yep, it's
so
in everything.
Fuck, what am I supposed to do?
They're
in everything.
Everything. Yeah, it's really hard to find stuff that doesn't have some sort of seed oil in it. And it's just watered down with garbage is all it is. It's just, they just pack it in shit to, it's no different than, the hydrogenated vegetable oils or, you start to see a lot of things like, corn syrup, that kind of stuff in everything, because it's just super cheap to make. And, there's an easy way to grow it, and then they put it in everything and just waters it down. It's no different than taking any beverage that you ever have enjoyed and pouring a bunch of water into it. Starbucks does this. I mean, you go and get a certain drink at Starbucks and you have to ask them to not add water to it. because it will literally they will water down whatever beverage you're having because it's cheap.
Or fill the entire cup with ice
Right, exactly.
to
Well,
make it look
that's
like it's full.
yeah. On a cold one, they don't add. So, like, if you go get a chai tea from Starbucks, if it's hot, they're going to add water, so you have to ask for no water. Or if it's cold, it's going to literally be a cup of ice with, a few ounces of actual beverage in it. Exactly. So, seed oils they kind of do the same thing with that. They just literally water down all of our food, and it's like sugar. It's highly, or actually more like sugar substitutes. It's highly addictive. And so people get stuck on it. But if you try to look for stuff, like I've looked for all kinds of alternatives, barbecue sauces you can find now without seed oil in it, which is great because if you're consuming large amounts of meat like we do, having some barbecue sauce that doesn't have all the garbage in it is good. But God, it's in everything. Ketchup. I mean, even add it to peanut butter, like as if the peanut itself, the seed of a peanut isn't enough. They got to now add, some other seed oil to a peanut butter. It's kind of crazy. So.
It's really scary, man. Like when you start paying attention to this stuff, and I have to admit, most of my life, I grew up on a pretty good diet. My dad and my grandpa were health freaks, or my dad is a health freak, but even still, there was just stuff they didn't know at the time. And in my adult life, I've been pretty good, but even if you're pretty good, it's pretty bad in the American diet. Like if you start paying attention to this stuff, it's unbelievable. It's no wonder our society is so obese. There's so many people with type 2 diabetes. I'm reading Peter Attia's book, Outlive, right now. And I'm going to screw up the statistics, but something like 1 in 400 people had type 2 diabetes prior to 1970. And then it went to like 1 in 75. Now it's like 1 in 9.
Yep.
And then when you control for, what was it? It was something like 11% of the U.S. population has type 2 diabetes. Oh, I remember what it was, but like something like 50% of the population. So you got to figure, like, what is there? 300 some million.
Yeah, 335 million.
Some million people would qualify under at least one of the markers for pre-diabetes.
Yeah.
So our entire country, or at least half of our country, either has diabetes or is on track to get diabetes, which leads to all kinds of other things: Alzheimer's, cancer, cardiovascular problems, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And in that book, he talks about how prior to, I can't remember prior to the 40s or 50s,
it's almost non-existent.
Rare. Yeah. Type 2 diabetes was exceedingly rare. And if you go back even further to that, to when people started documenting this type of stuff, which I think was in like the 1700s or something like that, it was extremely rare. I mean, it did happen. And it even gets geekier, like going back to like when society started getting a little richer, and there was like really, really wealthy people that could just gorge on food and all this stuff, and people started getting obese. And then I don't know if you're at this part in the book or not, but it's pretty interesting where it talks about when if you believe in the evolution story, the evolution of how these beings went from Africa up into Europe, but in Europe they'd never dealt with cold winters because in Africa the climate was pretty easy,
temperate,
and food was plentiful. But when they got to Europe and the climate started changing, because it was somewhat tropical at one point, but then it started changing into having these winters. They'd never dealt with that before, so their bodies started developing these processes for storing fat, and then to survive these winters, which is great. But then some of them went back down to Africa where it was still pretty easy to live, and this propensity to store fat just kind of was, they didn't need it, but it stuck with us, in other words. So and now we have this it was like a genetic mutation or something, and now we have some of these systems in our bodies that we used to need, but now we really don't because of modern technology and all these things. Anyways, fascinating book. I'm not qualified to be talking about it, but to the point, it's crazy when you start actually wanting to do the right thing and like put the right things in your body, how actually difficult it is. Even fish. Now I'm all freaked out about fish. I love fish, but
Yeah.
now people are telling me like, watch it.
Too
You
much
can't,
mercury,
don't eat
blah, blah,
fish.
blah.
The
Yeah.
mercury,
Yeah.
and which is true. There
Right.
is,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
shit, I thought fish was healthy, man. I thought, eat
Yeah.
raw fish, sushi. I love sushi.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's
but
crazy how if you look, there's a direct
go ahead.
correlation between the attack on fats and the rise in diabetes. If you remember when we were growing up, in the 80s and to the 90s, everything was get fat free, get fat free. Well, what did they do with the fat that was in all the stuff? Is they just replaced it with sugar. The sugar industry saw that there was money to be made there, and there's no money necessarily in the fat industry because we can get fat from animals, we can get fat from good healthy vegetable oils and things like that, and avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, but there's no real money in that, not compared to what there is like in sugar, and the fats are
Mm-hmm.
definitely not as addictive. So you can actually go back and do these, find these best fit trend lines as far as like when there was a crossover between diabetes coming on and when the attack on fats really started happening. And you look at,
Mm-hmm.
30 years ago, our society wasn't nearly as fat as it is now. And that's a really, really short amount of time in the 100,000 years that, humans or whatever have been on the planet. So we are a testament right now to our own wrongdoing, I think. And my background is I have a degree in exercise science. My minor was in nutrition, and so I actually did a lot of looking in early on and into nutrition, how it affected the body, especially from a human performance perspective. And you've just watched in general the human performance decline over time based on what we're now consuming from a food situation. We are in the industrialized food revolution. Most people don't have to do what we do to eat. Like and we don't have to do it to eat. Obviously, there's plentiful food out there, but since we're not hunters by nature anymore, people have just become grocery store farmers, supermarket assassins. And it has created a weaker man than what we had 50 years ago. Even with all the conveniences that we have, that's not a good thing. So it's just interesting to see
Yeah.
how all those things tie together.
Oh, absolutely. When I walk into I have a little general store down the street from my house, and my daughter likes to go there. She loves Doritos or whatever,
Yeah.
Cheetos, stuff like that. So, about once a week, I'll take her down there and she can buy her Cheetos and whatever. Anyways, I go in that store and it's a wonderful place, very nice people. But I look around now that I'm more conscious of this stuff, and I think to myself, I'm going to say 85% of the stuff in the store is junk, is complete and utter junk, and is
like
the
a grocery
reason that
store.
For sure. But at least there's healthy stuff you can find if you know what you're looking for. But if you go into like a Texaco or a gas station, like it's pretty tough, other than water, to find one single item, like one thing, or like unsalted nuts, or like even the jerky and the pepperoni sticks they have in most of those places are, they have stuff in them that isn't good for you. And it's not like it's going to kill you eating it once or whatever, but it is fascinating that you can't actually buy real food at a lot of these places unless you actually know what the hell you're looking for, and or go to a really expensive Whole Foods or a up to the Whole Foods type place. It's actually a lot of work.
It is. For as much travel as I do for work, for all intents and purposes, I'm gone most parts of most weeks. You try to eat while you're on the road all the time, and it becomes challenging, and people are like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, do you just go through fast food places? Like, no, I haven't actually eaten fast food since 1996. Like, I will avoid that stuff like the plague. It's like when I start thinking, oh, I'm hungry, that is not even a thought in my mind. Is like, oh, where's the nearest Burger King or where's the nearest McDonald's? Like, that is just not where I go. But it's, I'll just go to a grocery store, but it's hard, or a gas station if that's all you have and you're looking around at what can you get. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm getting another muscle milk for lunch today. So you buy something that's probably still not really, really great for you in reality, but it's better than grabbing a bag of chips and, a muffin or something like that, which is what a lot of people will do. Is they'll just look around and say, oh, I like these, like I'm just going to grab this. And now grocery or gas stations, they sell full size bags of chips. I don't remember that in the past. It used to always be the gas station side stuff. It was always smaller. And now you can go in there and buy the entire bag of chips. And
full size bags of chips and 24-ounce single cans of beer.
right. Yeah.
Ginormous Gatorade stuff with
Yeah.
sugar.
64-ounce fountain drinks. Like that's what they have there. Yeah. Yeah. So
The other
it's
day I was at
tough.
the gas station and there was a whole rack in front of me, right in front. The entire front rack was, those Takis, those new chips that people like. It's called
TAKIS.
Yeah. I have been spending a load of time researching the 3 or 4 states that I'm going to be hunting this year, researching the units, the trophy potential, et cetera, the maps of where I might be going. I've been making sure that I'm filling holes in my gear, all the things that you need to do in prep, because that is not a lot of time. It's like 8 weeks away. So I've been putting pretty big dents in it, and I do most of that at gohunt.com. You should become an insider so you have access to all the tools that I do. You should go to their gear shop. They have all the best brands. And when you shop and or join, use my code ALTITUDE and you'll get a significant discount. So there's no excuse not to go do it. Gohunt.com, use code ALTITUDE for a discount. The blue ones were the blue Takis were in the entire, I'm thinking to myself, like my dad told me when I was a kid, nothing blue is good for you other than like a blueberry, but it's actually purple. So if you see something blue, don't eat it or drink it. And like we have blue chips now that are lining the fronts of our stores. Like no wonder our entire country is fucked.
Blue corn. Where'd that shit come from? When was the last time you saw blue corn growing in the field? God, if they, you look at they just put stuff on everything. I mean, whether it's like you're saying, seed oils, or if they're pumping coloring or dyes into our food, it's just, that's why I really, really like being a hunter, because I can control, for the most part, everything that I put in my body, knowing exactly where it came from, how it hit the ground, how it was processed. The guy that we used for all of our butchering stuff at Matt's Custom Meats up in Washington, he's fantastic, because he's unlike a lot of other places where, it used to be that a lot of places you would take your meat in there. That didn't guarantee you got your meat back.
Which is insane. I think that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, you drop off a mule deer and you get back some blacktail, and you're like, this isn't the same thing, right? So,
well, it defeats the whole point. It's like, what is this, a commune? I'm not bringing I worked hard for this meat.
Yeah,
I'm not bringing it in for you to give it to somebody else. I want my own damn meat. And for a long time, they didn't even tell you.
Right. I don't know how you took care of your meat. I know how Shannon and I, when we, in our hunts, we know exactly how we take care of our stuff. And it is, when we drop it off, it is basically as close to being ready for packaging as possible. We're very, very careful with it. Other people aren't like that. You hear horror stories of guys dropping off meat that have so much dirt on it that the butcher's just looking at him like, what are you doing? Like dragging this down the road when you kill it? It's unbelievable. So I love the fact that we can control what we consume for the vast majority of what we do. And some of that leads to wanting to go on multiple hunts to have different kinds of animals to consume. So it's not just elk all the time, or it's not just, coos deer or, axis deer or whatever. You got to have a variety in there too. So, and then, I recently started our butcher that I have. I asked him not too long ago, like, do you have a place that has grass fed, grass finished, like unhormoned, anything, just natural beef? And he goes, I got 2 places that I can get it from. I said, perfect. Give me some ribeye and some New York, and I'll buy some steaks from you too, because it's not that I dislike beef, but if you can't control what you're getting, if you're just purely buying it from the grocery store, who knows how well that meat's being taken care of, or what's in it. So going as natural as possible on everything is, to me, is like the best way to do it.
Yeah, basically the rule I'm trying to follow, for the most part, like last night I had some chips and salsa. So what? Like, you just
do that all the time.
Do the best we can, not be unrealistic. But the rule I'm trying to live up to is, as most as possible, is just eat real food.
Yes.
Like, it's actually not complicated. Like, if I'm going to have, I eat a lot of broccoli and a lot of meat, a lot of elk meat, elk, blacktail, antelope, axis, wild game, and organic vegetables and fruit. I ate a lot of organic fruit, and I drink a lot of water, and that's about it. Coffee. That's about it. Sure, every once in a while I'll take my kids to ice cream and I'll have some ice cream or something, but for the most part, that's what I try to eat. And when you think about it, you're like, well, no shit. So you're saying eat real food?
Eat real food.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not complicated when you think about it, but we've been so programmed for so long and we were so far from where we used to be a long time ago in our standards, but not long ago in like evolutionary standards, that we've just forgotten. It's like eat real food, not hard. And I want to try the carnivore thing, or at least the like a modified version of it, because like keto carnivore or something like that.
Yep.
Because I think I could do it. It's basically what I already do, sort of. But yeah, just eat real food and drink water and eat. All this stuff is actually pretty simple. Like if you're dumb, like I am, like I'm a simple guy. It's like move your body because it was made to move. Eat real food because it's real. Drink water because that's what you're meant to drink.
You're 70% of it.
Yeah. Go outside because you're meant to be in the sun and be outside in nature. Like, so this is not rocket science.
It's not.
Right?
No, not at all. Yeah. And you're seeing some of this being exposed now, more and more as we continue before. There are people kind of standing up to the industrial food revolution. And, you got guys like Paul Saladino, who does a very modified carnivore scenario, but his is all about animal based, which is interesting because it includes a lot of fruit, right? But that doesn't seem like it constitutes animal based, but it's from nature. So I think if you're looking at a journey, it's that. Granted, I'm not going to go out and start eating raw, cow testicles or anything like he does, or raw liver. I like my food cooked. But yeah, I mean, you can definitely do a modified carnivore and add in some of the stuff that you're referring to. Good quality fruits that are not super super high on the glycemic index, and you're going to ultimately have a benefit. Eggs are not bad. Cholesterol's not bad. They've tried to tell us this stuff in the recent past, that's the reasoning for heart disease and all this other crap. It's like, there's so much more of a correlation to sugar than there is to eggs when it comes to cholesterol and heart disease. And now some of the literature is finally starting to poke holes in the one study that they used from 20 years ago to say that this was the issue.
Why do you think they did that? Let's get into conspiracy theories here a little bit. Why do you think they did that? Because I remember growing up, it was cholesterol and fat, cholesterol and fat, cholesterol and fat. You don't hear shit about that stuff anymore.
Nope. I think it's all about money. It's all where they can control where they get their money from. And they literally hung their hat on one study. It's no different than the climate change, science experts that had the hockey stick study that they used to try to show that the big jump in carbon was what was causing all this man-made climate change, which has completely been debunked by a lot of other scientists that said your study was shitty and you should have never used it. But I think it's a very similar situation to what and look at climate. If you don't have people scared that there's climate change, nobody's making money off of the situation. Same thing with the food industry. If people can grow their own chickens and get their own eggs or milk their own cows or shoot their own game, then the food industry isn't making any money. So the only way that, the American people have been tricked into all this nonsense that we're in right now is just literally by fearmonger. Cholesterol is causing heart disease.
Did you see this latest food pyramid
that
they put out?
It's unbelievable.
This was absolutely
Frosted
scary.
Flakes are healthier than eggs.
Yeah. I want to try to find it.
Yeah. That one's really crazy to me, because like when I was in college and I was studying nutrition, I actually had to go through and like recreate the food pyramid and change it from what it was in the 80s. The one that the team of students that I was working with and I did, it looked absolutely nothing like the one that they just recently put out. But, I think that they're trying to keep people suppressed, health-wise, so that they can be dependent on buying stuff from the center part of the grocery store out of a box that's processed that could stay on your shelf for 2 years and not have any issues. They don't want us to be able to do things on our own.
Okay, here we go. I just found it. It wasn't a pyramid. It was a chart.
Well, no, there is the food pyramid. They did redo it. If you look hard enough, you will find it. It's not that. It's not like it's hidden real well.
Now I'm getting ads. Hold on.
No worries.
This is what I was talking about right here.
Yep.
So we have frosted mini wheats. So what are we looking at? Okay, so green is to be encouraged, yellow is to be moderated, red is to be minimized.
Yep.
So
Ground beef.
in last place is ground
Yep.
beef to be minimized in red.
Yep.
Third from the top is frosted mini
frosted
wheats.
mini wheats.
Number one to be encouraged is watermelon, which, by the way, I don't know a lot about nutrition, but I've heard that watermelon's kind of a nothing.
Well, watermelon's a high GMO crop. Seedless watermelons never existed in nature until man had the ability to change it. You know, like your broccoli. Broccoli's good, but broccoli is a man-made plant. If you look into it, it is actually, there's really nothing that we have on the earth right now that's not some form of GMO, whether it was working just with the genetics of it through, cross-pollination or actually doing it in a lab. It's two different things. But like bananas, they don't look anything like they did 200 years ago.
I love how this is on Snopes.com that I'm reading this, which is a fact-checking website. Yeah. I love how they're trying to debunk people calling this out. They call this the too much discussed chart.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. I love this. So what we have here is we have chocolate covered almonds.
Yeah.
Above.
Ground
and
beef.
then this is the, okay. I'm going to
read
the greens for people.
Yeah.
For people that can't see this. So this is the top 10 or plus or minus. Watermelon, kale. Okay, fine. Frosted mini wheats, unsweetened almond milk, non-fat frozen yogurt, chocolate covered almonds, orange juice, honey nut Cheerios, and dates. That's your top 10 to be encouraged foods for idiots.
Yep. Not one piece of meat in there. Not one protein thing.
No. I always notice with these politicized health nuts that because they don't want people eating meat for various controversial and political reasons, and I guess part of the climate debate as well, they always find a way to stick it in the bottom.
Yeah.
And what's crazy right now is there's a lot of people that have had undebatable success eating only meat for years.
Yes. Well, type 2 diabetes can be cured by just eating meat.
Yeah. And I know that there's no long-term studies on it because people, and at least modern people, haven't been doing it long enough to really, who knows? These people could fall over and die. I don't know.
Well, there is a long-term study on it because if you look at just the history of humans and where we've evolved to, like the rates of heart disease that we have now are significantly higher than they were 200 years ago. So if you just look at the last, few hundred years, you can see that as we've stopped consuming meat, that there's rates of heart disease have increased because you're eating more of the things that are in the middle top of that graph, as opposed to like if you just ate the three things on the bottom of that thing, I guarantee you'd be healthier than somebody else that ate all the rest of the stuff above it.
Yeah, so the three things at the bottom, just for people. Listen to this. The three things at the bottom, this is to be minimized. These are all in red, okay? Whole egg fried in butter, cheddar cheese, and ground beef. So this chart is encouraging you to eat frosted mini wheats, and please do not eat ground beef and cheddar cheese and a whole egg fried in butter. That's very bad for you. Do not do it.
Yep.
Whatever. Oh, and if you want to find a healthier alternative, what you should buy is almond M&Ms, because almond M&Ms are above non-fat mozzarella cheese and cheddar cheese and ground beef. So
what a bunch of shit.
I encourage you to. Here's what I think people should be eating. This is your diet, okay? Honey nut Cheerios, almond M&Ms, chocolate covered almonds, and frosted mini wheats. You will be a very healthy and happy human being. And if you believe that, then I don't know what to tell you.
So here's something for you too, Dave. You know who this may be slightly different now, but you know who the largest consumer of kale was in the United States, like historically?
Vegans?
Pizza Hut. You know why? They use it for the garnish around their salad bar or their pizza buffet. So
no way.
Yeah, the whole kale superfood thing is really a misnomer. It's really not a superfood. It's just kind of funny that Do you follow Carnivore MD on Instagram? I do. Yep, I do.
He has those shirts that says kale's bullshit.
Yeah.
My wife and I debate. My wife and I debate this all the time. I'm not an expert in the matter, but
Yeah, that's Paul Saladino, who I was referring to earlier. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
he's University of Washington grad. Did a lot of his studies in Washington State before wherever he's at now, somewhere tropical all the time. It seems like, someplace that
Costa
makes the rest
Rica.
of us jealous. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
I get jealous every time I see his house.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
uh, he says that. Why is it bullshit? Do you know why is he saying that? Well, because I've
Yeah,
always been
because
told that
everybody calls it a
kale is like the
superfood,
greatest thing ever.
right? And it's really not. It's from a nutrient density perspective, it doesn't really have a lot in it. Yeah, there is some good stuff to it. I mean, just like any vegetable, you are going to get some positive out of it. But if you're just eating kale, um, good luck on being healthy. You don't see a lot of people surviving and thriving on kale alone. Where you could take people who like Paul Saladino or somebody that just strictly eats, an animal based diet, and you see them thrive. It's just
The industrial food complex, is that right to say
yeah,
that?
yeah.
They do not like people like him at all.
Nope, they
They
don't.
he is the devil. And he says some things where I'm like, okay, that's a little extreme. That's a little Liver King.
Yeah,
But for me, like, I'm not going to eat a raw testicle. Okay.
yeah, exactly. I'm not going to same thing. That's what I was saying earlier. Or liver.
Yeah, and liver, not my favorite. My grandpa loved liver.
But
But
raw
organs,
or
I
cooked.
get why organs are. I mean, organs are probably the healthiest part of the animal. We can't, like, you watch the show alone, you'll see very quickly the people that try to survive just on lean meat,
Yep.
without some of those other good stuff, like without supplementing something with
Yeah.
fats and organs, they don't last. And
Yeah.
so that's why our ancestors ate organs. I mean, they
Uh,
did. They
look
they, they ate everything.
look at a pack of wolves when they kill. What do they eat? I mean, or coyotes. Like all they generally do is go specifically into the cavity and eat the organs out because they are the most nutrient dense part of the animal. And then if it's still there, they
Yeah,
will come back and eat the protein out of it. But that's what they go to. They go to almost instinctively. So.
coyotes. It's gross to say, but coyotes eat the butt
Hmm.
and the innards before they eat anything else. It seems like
Yep.
they don't even really care about the meat unless they have a couple days to nibble on it.
Right.
They start at the butt and they go forward. So, like last year, I shot an antelope in Colorado, and I had to leave it overnight. Unfortunately, he just ran out there, and I tried to get another arrow in him, but he kept getting up out of his bed, so I had to leave him overnight. And when
Hmm.
I went back, I hiked most of the way in the dusky dust dark until I could make sure he was done, so I didn't spook him again. And he was laying there, and I couldn't avoid it. The coyotes ate out his butt basically
Hmm.
all night, and there was just like a watermelon sized hole where that's always where they start,
Yep.
and you think, well, that's kind of gross. Well, yeah, it is, but that they don't care about what you think. They care about, they're hungry as fuck, and
Hmm.
they gotta eat, and they gotta have the nutrients that they need.
Yep.
And that's where there was somebody, I can't remember. I think Rogan had him on. He lived in Alaska by himself for a long time, and he was saying how he got his vegetables from eating the actually partially digested food out of the stomachs, like almost like a salad of the caribou
Right.
and stuff that he would harvest. He would eat everything, and his
Yeah.
favorite parts were the organs because that's where a lot of the nutrients you need are. Anyways,
Right. Yeah. It's pretty
so
interesting.
how did you get involved with? And hey, Corey, just so you know, I forgot, but I have a meeting at 10 o'clock that I got to be on. So um, we'll still be on the podcast for about an hour and a half, but
Okay.
I'll edit this part
Whatever.
out. But yeah. So Corey, I didn't know that you were so educated on this stuff. This would be fun to geek out some more on that. But
Yeah.
I got to know, how did you get involved with Shannon? Because as people know, they follow your YouTube channel. They've watched your video. Dude, you came into our jujitsu gym the other night to meet up with me, and I was still rolling. And my coach Chris, he walks up to me. He's like, "Is that Cory Ford?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You know everybody."
That was funny. Yeah.
So you're a celeb
Yeah. Right.
from your guys' YouTube channel,
Yeah.
and I love following you guys because you guys hunt a lot of Roosevelts,
Mm-hmm.
and I grew up in Roosevelt country. In fact, we hunt similar units, similar areas, and I love watching your videos. So one of the things I wanted to find out is, how did you get started into that? Like, what was that like, and what happened?
Yeah, our forte, I guess, if anything, is and our main focus is Roosevelt's, but we've kind of dove into a bunch of adventure hunting and different stuff around the country now too. But I grew up with Shannon and his two younger brothers, who I actually graduated high school with. We all wrestled together. My dad would help coach the high school team with wrestling once I grew and ended up 6'3". My dad was like, "Well, you're going to be a basketball player," but my dad's love for wrestling kept him like helping out with the high school stuff. So he worked with Shannon a lot when he was going through high school through wrestling, and Shannon, wrestled at state and everything. And it was, I hadn't seen him in quite some time after high school, and we were at a wedding together, and we just kind of reconnected a little bit. And I was looking to start hunting in Oregon because I wanted to expand what I was doing, my Washington stuff, and just kind of be able to get out more and more as you get older and you find I guess your passion for hunting. It's like, okay, how can I extend my elk hunting season to cover 2 states in 6 weeks of September into early October, which would be the prime time for me to hunt elk. And so we just started talking, and it kind of worked out where I was going to be going down to an area that was close to where they were at, and just kind of said, "Hey, why don't we just camp together?" And then it just randomly worked that, like, one of the very first days we were out hunting, we located a bull and dropped in on it, and I pretty much was shooting backup. We were filming. It was going to be a bull that Shannon was going to kill, and he turned and said, as we got close to it, he's like, "Look, if this bull comes in and he's not what I want to shoot," I was like, "Take the shot." And when that bull came into view, 45, 50 yards, it was just an average 5-point, 230, 240-inch 5-point, nothing special by any stretch of the imagination. He kind of just stepped off to the side, and I ended up taking the shot and killing that bull, and led to a pack out in another the next drainage over, across the river, dirt bike up and down some train tracks kind of situation, and just a really, really fun first hunt Oregon experience. And ever since then, we've hunted together. We've kind of evolved in the group of guys that we hunt with, and then as our Roosevelt hunts evolved, we started doing other things. Arizona Coues deer, as you know, like, is a phenomenal hunt in January to get away from the rainy weather in the Northwest. And Hawaii for axis deer is just like maybe the most game-filled fun adventure you could go on. And so we've really kind of expanded out what we've done. We've continued to try to film. Some of those things when you're filming archery hunts are really, really challenging. But we started the YouTube stuff, and that from DVDs. Back in 2005, Shannon started making DVDs. So he was one of the very, very first. In fact, he's probably the first guy to start filming Roosevelt hunts on DVDs. A couple years before Born and Raised started doing their stuff. And then they've just taken it to a whole other level, because that's what they wanted to do. Their trajectory was different than what Shannon's or mine was at that point in time. So, 5 DVDs later, we started the YouTube channel. And then, caught notice of some people like Corey Jacobsen, who then was gracious enough to ask us to be part of the Destination Elk series that you've been a part of as well. And since then,
I've been a pathetic part of so far. I need to come and have my revenge on Destination Elk and not get injured and kill a bull.
Right, you and me both, man. It has been the curse of my elk hunting, because I killed bull like 7 or 8 years in a row in Oregon, something like that. And then ever since Destination Elk, when we started filming that, I've killed one bull, and it was in Washington after we were done filming Destination Elk. So I shot one, which we have a video of, frontal quarter-2, really hard quarter-2, really.
Is that on your YouTube
4
channel?
yards. It is, yeah, 4 yards, and
Where's it
we
at?
never did recover it. That one is the.
I'm going to pull it up, folks. We're going to watch it. I want some commentary on this, because I remember this. You sent me the video.
Yeah.
Is it a game of inches? A game of inches, frustrations on a big Roosevelt.
No, keep going up.
Oh no, it's 4 yards and send it.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, because I remember this. You texted me when this happened. Oh, here we're gonna get an ad.
There's one simple hearing hack anyone can use to
they don't
improve.
let me mute it.
I can't.
Bastard.
I couldn't hear it on my end when
almost
you muted it.
overnight.
All right. Let's get through this.
That's an elk bugle, by the way. What you heard right there was an elk bugle.
Went up. Sunny out this morning. So
let's go to this situation.
Yep.
Here.
And,
okay,
so walk us through what's going on here.
Yeah, so this is just our approach. Like we had located this bull. We found what we do. We hunt for rubs. We don't really hunt for elk. We hunt for signs. So we found a bunch of really big rubs in this area, and so we just started picking the area apart and different vantage points to be able to bugle from. And we finally got a response from him. We were going to try to come in underneath of him. It was fairly early in the morning. I think this was only like at 9:30 in the morning. So as you know, like in the coast, like that early morning thermals are generally pulling down. So we were going to try to come up to his level and then work in on him. We ended up just getting into a scenario where we couldn't get through the terrain to get to him. So we ended up swinging around and coming up on the top of the ridge and coming at him from a different angle. I walked down off of the end of a landing, poked into the timber, bugled, and got a response from him. And he was a lot closer than he would have been if we would have came from the other side.
You guys are, you do a lot of the location method where you cover a lot of country and just find a vocal bull. You don't waste time necessarily just diving into drainages looking for ghosts. It's like,
correct.
If you don't get an answer, you're moving on, right?
Yep. Yeah, we'll cover a lot of ground. I mean, there's a lot of times we'll travel, 50 to 100 miles in a day. And as you know, the coast is all broken up with logging roads. So that's the most efficient way to do it. And we're looking for sign, and then there is finally where we responded. So not a lot of blind calling into canyons unless we are pretty positive there's a bull in there.
Oh, really? So you're waiting even to see fresh sign. You don't just blindly.
Yeah, not correct. Not a lot of blind calling. So here we're just pushing in. It's a really narrow knife ridge that we came down. And just, as we get closer and closer, we're just building anticipation on that bull. Once we locate him, then you want to keep his attention, because if not, I mean, you maybe have heard this on other podcasts that Shannon and I have done, but Shannon's got this thing that, elk are like toddlers. If you don't keep their attention, they get bored and they'll just go do something else. And so that's kind of the same thing with what we do with our approach, is try to keep their attention as we're going in and try to get set up in a spot where you can actually kill a bull. So this is where everything goes down. And unfortunately, he zigged right at the end where I thought he was going to zag, and he came in at a different angle, and I had my mindset where my aiming point was. And here in a second, you'll see where this bull, it's real obvious that he's on his way. Hopefully people can hear the audio.
It's just it. Here, I'll turn the audio up a little bit. It's just so frustrating in the Coast Range because it's not like the Rockies where you have multiple shooting lanes a lot of times.
Right.
In the Coast Range, a lot of times you have 1 10-yard opening and that's it. And it's so brushy, you're not shooting any other way. So it's really hard sometimes under pressure to be like, I'm committing to this one opening. And that's it.
And you're looking at it right there.
What if he comes that way? What if he comes this way?
Yep.
You work so hard for these opportunities. But I see here, because you're in that reprod that you're in is probably
it's all big timber on the left side and a little bit
on the edge of 10-year-old reprod or whatever, which is even thicker.
Yep. And this is literally the only spot that I had. I turned and looked at Shannon and I said, I don't really have anywhere to go from here, because it just got brushier and brushier. And then you'll see what happens. I'm expecting him to come out in that little opening to the right. And so when you see me draw my bow, that's the way that I would have anticipated him coming. And instead he comes behind that little jack fir right there and comes into my left. So I have to pivot and shoot at him at a different angle. So that's where I'm expecting to come in.
Oh, he turned. Yep.
So rather than aiming and hitting him at the color phase change, in that hard quarter two frontal, and I knew it right away that I just shot in the wrong spot. I mean, you could see it on my face, the disappointment, because as I replayed it all in my head in real time, it was just I aimed on the wrong side of the sternum. Basically, as he comes in, I'm still focused on his right front part of his chest, and I needed to change my aim point to the left front because of the angle of his body, and I didn't do that. And I think that arrow slipped in behind the shoulder blade, through the brisket behind the shoulder blade and out the back right side, and never hit anything vital because he bled really good, but not to the point, where hours later.
Did you ever find the arrow?
Never found the arrow, but what we did find was 2 days later, some guys we knew in the area thought that they saw the bull, and then they confirmed it in February of that following winter when they were in there doing some scouting, that he actually did survive. So, and that guy right there, my buddy Jason, he dropped down off the ridge to go below us to drive one of the rigs down because we figured this bull was going to drop off to a lower road, and we were going to just pack him out down that way. And the bull had only gone about 100 yards and stopped, and he was there. So we sat down and ate lunch and hung out and kind of gave him time. Jason's a super antsy dude and high energy guy, so he starts pushing up the hill from below to come up to help us, and he ended up bumping that bull and pushing him into the wrong drainage. So we ended up chasing him down into the next drainage over, and because of that, like, instead of that bull just stoving up right there and possibly dying, he stayed alive and just kept going. And then that night we had a storm come in, and we just absolute torrential downpour, and I lost any ability to track blood. So I went in 2 days later and looked around for him, tried to find him, and hoping that maybe by that point, if he had died, that there would be birds, and there was nothing there. So it was nice getting the confirmation from those other guys that he had survived, which is great, but it would have been much, much better if that thing would have died.
Dude, that's a major bummer.
It is. I don't think people understand that, that don't do this, that don't hunt, what it means or how it haunts us for the entire year. Constantly thinking about that in your brain,
Yeah. No, unfortunately, because I've been hunting so long, I have too many of those stories.
Yeah.
I had one a couple years ago. Let's see, it would have been 3 years ago. That really tears me apart because I'm pretty sure the bull died. Because I hunt that area and there's a lot of cuts, and I watched that herd of cows for the rest of the season, and he never came back. But I couldn't find him. But I ambushed this Roosevelt again. I ambushed this herd perfectly. Had the cows come by me at 20 yards, or at least a couple of them came by me at 20 yards, and then they started filtering up the hill towards me. But then they started cutting in at, I think it was 58, and he was following them. And I thought, well, he's either going to follow the ones that went in at 58 or he's going to come to like 20. So I'll just wait and just see, because if he comes to 20, that's obviously a better shot. And it was very steep downhill, very steep. But I had lots of time. I was super calm. I had ranged everything. I was like ready, dialed in. And he turned broadside at 58, straight downhill. And I thought, well, I can shoot him right now. I can just get this over with. That's not a hard shot for me. I can do it, and I'm calm, and I've ranged it 7 times, And that was my mistake. I should have let him filter into the trees and get closer, maybe, or just let it go. Even though that's not a long shot, there was a chance he was coming closer, and I should have been patient. My number one thing that I've been working on the last 5 years, especially, that I've struggled my entire life with, and I think a lot of hunters do, is patience under stress.
Yep.
Being patient to wait. You've waited an entire year for this opportunity. You have to have the patience to wait another 2 or 3 seconds or a half a second or whatever it is to do things right. And that's something where I've failed a lot in my life. And in this specifics, even though I'm more mature now and I don't feel doing that as much, this specific situation 3 or 4 years ago, this bull standing there, I'm like, I could wait for him to get closer, but I got him right here. I got him. Like, he's done, right? So I drew back. I took my time. I went through my process. I remember it all clearly. I wasn't like out of my mind or anything. It was a nice bull, like a nice 4 or 5 year old, nice 5 point or a little 6 point. I can't remember.
Yep.
And I let the arrow go, and I had a lighted knock. And I remember I watched where I wanted it to go, and it's, you know, you can kind of, it's like slow mo, and it just, I see that lighted knock hit, and it immediately goes off, and I hear tink like that, you know, like it hits something. It just, and when he's running off, my arrow is just like flopping on his side like this, right? And I'm shooting 250 grain Valkyries with, I mean, they're stout. I've only had them not get into the body cavity. Actually, before this, one time. Other than that, there's nothing I've hit, and that was because I hit the. Actually, I wonder if I could show that video. That would be interesting to show. I hit a bull, and just in that front ball joint, kind of quartering to me, and it did nothing. It just deflected off of it and didn't. Anyways,
that's interesting because I've seen those Valkyries just destroy our buddy Jack Lander.
It was because, so I tested it, dude. I tested it on a bull I shot. I put it on the bail, and I tried shooting that ball joint a bunch of different ways. And I think what happened on that bull was, I think I just hit like maybe just enough to the side of the ball joint that it had enough momentum to deflect. But if I've tested it, I can break those things in half if I hit them in the right spot. But you know, it's an oval shape, so if you kind of hit it off the side, it's going to deflect it.
Yeah, it's
anyways
round.
This arrow's flopping out. Bull runs across this clear cut and into some trees, and I thought, dude, I saw where it hit. It was like right on line, but for some reason, well, I heard the tink, which isn't ever good because that usually means it's the shoulder blade. But I'm like, it still should have gone through that shoulder blade and went down in the vitals because it was steep downhill, and at least got a lung or something. And so I watched this bull run off. Sure as shit, on the coast range, it starts pouring down rain, like all night. So we left him, went back the next day. Long story short, never found him. I was up there all week. I looked the entire next day, and actually I hunted that area for the whole week looking for him. Never saw him again. I have no idea what happened. My best guess is that maybe that broadhead, I never found the arrow either, even though it was flopping out. I never found it. I still want to try to go find that son of a bitch. Yeah. I know it's laying in that clear cut.
Get a metal detector.
But that, I think that broadhead must have got through that shoulder blade at least a little bit. And sometimes they'll get an infection, or you slice a lung, and they can go forever. Right. I mean, they can live for days on stuff like that, but maybe it didn't make it through the winter. I feel awful, dude. Like that's every time I drive by that spot, I'm like, fuck, God, it wasn't a bad shot either. I mean, it was probably an inch from just, he'd have been dead in 50 yards or 2 inches.
Yep. Well, it's a shitty feeling, man. It really is. Like, and to your point, your patience earlier, like that bull that we just watched on that video, I had way more time than I took. I didn't have to, as soon as that bull stopped, I didn't have to shoot. Like if you've ever been in a situation like that, and we've got another video that Shannon at like 20 yards shooting one frontal, or hard quarter too, not technically frontal, but that bull just stood there and looked at us, and then Shannon just held because the bull's head was right where he needed to shoot, and then eventually he moved his head to kind of, he's just scanning the area like there's supposed to be an elk here. Where are you? You have more time in those situations that you think, but it's not that you panic and you don't panic shoot, like you're not punching the trigger. You're just panicking that you don't have as much time as you really think you do to set up like that. And I should have just taken more time. What video
is that with Shannon? I'll find it.
It's him standing with a bull. Yeah. Right there.
This one?
The first one to 20. Perfect quarter two.
Just powered up.
So another scenario where, we locate a bull and he just happens to be in a big timber patch, and we got to get through a bunch of reprod to get over to where he's at, which we hate hunting reprod because, as you know, it's just some of the most, unruling territory or terrain to try to hunt in.
Kydex holsters stink. Well, that's what everybody accuses me of saying whenever I talk about the Vanish holster.
Oh, that's a
And we
pretty
saw the
bull.
bull as he was coming in. I mean, he's a nice bull. So we actually got to saw him or see him and watch his reaction as he was working in, but he's right out in the open. And there's a big timber patch on a little knob that drops down over to a river on the back side of that, and we called him up out of that and across over to where we are. So again, kind of what you're talking about before, like, you get into this kind of stuff and you just don't have a lot of lanes to shoot. And here, just like you were, he's shooting those heavy Valkyries. And the only thing that kept this arrow from a complete front to back pass through was that arrow lodged inside the rear back hip. Otherwise, it would have went right out the back end.
Such a deadly shot, though, when it works.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's unfortunate that more people don't attempt it, but I understand why, because like in my video, you saw what happened.
Yeah, that could happen on a broadside shot too. You can make a bad broadside shot.
Yep. So this bull's hung up right here, and he's expecting to see us where we're at. Shannon will moan at him, and that moan is pretty deadly.
Is it? You guys like using that?
Yeah, because then as soon as he hears that, he's like, "Oh, there's the bull," and he'll start pushing through.
Just a short.
Yep. Just something to create the noise. So you'll see this bull stop, and he's actually looking kind of right at us. But he's got his head kind of cocked to the right. Shannon's standing to my left as I'm filming, and you'll see as soon as he turns his head to the left, he shoots. And there it is. And that bull went 60 yards and died. And that was it. I mean, it's just, but you don't realize how much time you have in those situations. So
someone told me, an old wise elk hunter told me one time, that you always have more time than you think. Always. Mm-hmm. And that might mean a quarter of a second or 5 seconds or a minute.
Right.
But you've worked so, like I said, the anticipation is so heavy that when those opportunities come.
Nice 5x7.
Yep.
Got a little.
When those opportunities come, you're like, "Oh my God, here it is! I gotta go!"
Yep,
and there was one of my old elk hunting buddies, and he's a great elk hunter. He told me one time that, speaking just strictly for elk, a lot of times elk will let you stop them, draw back, and shoot them. Like they aren't as jumpy as a whitetail or even a mule deer or anything like that. Sometimes, I mean, not always, but like he told me that when I was younger, and I'm like, because I was with a recurve, it's very difficult to draw your bow and stop them and then shoot them. That's a long time to hold, right?
Yep.
With a compound, it's not too bad. But so this is when my wife and I were dating. She was with me. Maybe Anyways, I called in a bull, and it came in silent, and I had my recurve. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to stop this thing, draw back, and shoot it, just like my buddy Greg told me. And he comes in, turns broadside at like 30 yards, and I'm like, like that. And I literally just picked my spot, my recurve, drew back, held for a second, thump, right, double long, ran 40 yards, done. I'm like, shit, that works nice.
Yeah.
Now, after that time, I still made a lot of mistakes by rushing shots, but and the biggest mistake in my Roosevelt elk hunting career thus far was 2 or 3 years ago. I think I told you this the other day. I rushed a shot on like a 320 bull.
Yeah.
I had all the time in the world, and that one haunts me too because we have it on video, and my dad sends it to me from time to time to make fun of me. But he'll send me a text. He's like, "Remember this when you had all the time in the world and you rushed a shot and you missed?"
Yeah. Well, it's amazing because the elk are a lot different than, like you've hunted axis deer, we've hunted axis deer, you've hunted coos deer, and you know that those things, they don't give you a second opportunity, or they don't just stand there and look at you. So depending on the type of game, it will dictate that reaction. And elk, for whatever reason, they'll stand there kind of like a mule deer will run out to a certain distance and stop and turn around and look at you kind of broadside. And you're like, oh, really? Like, all right, well, at least you gave me an opportunity if you are within bow range. Elk give you way more time than you think, but yeah, it still happens that this, you can still make a bad shot. And in reality, looking back on it, like that bull that I shot and didn't kill, it was going to turn to his right to run. And at that point, even my aim point is still perfectly on line with a broadside shot as he turns or a quartered away shot as he turns. And at 4 yards, I could release the arrow at any point in time, and it's going to be there in a fraction of a second. So I didn't have to just shoot him in that hard quarter two, almost frontal shot. I could have waited and taken a different shot if he did bust before I released my arrow. So you have more opportunity than if a bull's standing completely broadside and he turns to run, he's instantly asked to you and gone. And then you're either going to take a Texas heart shot or you're going to watch him run away from you. So I had all kinds of time. I just, need to slow down.
Yeah. A lot of times bulls, just like mule deer, will take a few bounds and stop and look back at you. So I'd say half the time you have a chance that they're going to do that if they catch you drawing or you don't take the shot when you should have.
Yep.
But you know what's helped me with this, Corey, is shooting a hinge release.
Yeah.
And because it takes, I don't know, sometimes probably 3 to 5 seconds to go off from when I start rolling through
process.
It. So so I'm probably drawn for 8 or 10 seconds, right? So before with my recurve, I would have, as soon as I'm on target, I'm like, letting her rip, right? Because I thought it was like, you got to shoot right now.
Right.
But with this hinge release, like last year, I stopped that bull at 35 yards, and he's staring at me. He sees me. I'm standing on a stump in reprod. I mean, I'm out in the open, and he had no idea I was there because I didn't call him in. I ambushed him, but I'm like, like that. He saw me, but because I'm shooting a hinge, I can't just punch it, right?
Right.
I still got to pull through it. I got to click my safety off and pull through it. And he stood there and watched me shoot. And I've probably had, I don't know, I think I've shot 7 or 8 bulls with a hinge now, and I'd say at least half of them watch me shoot, watch me pull through it. Like whereas if I'd have had a trigger release, I'd have probably stopped them and at the same time punch the trigger, right? Because that's what most people do, because it's like a cue to shoot.
Right.
But if you just take a breath and take another, it's probably in reality a second or two, which is nothing.
Right.
But it like makes or breaks your season, that 1 or 2 seconds, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And a lot of things are like that in life too, right? If you just take time to not respond in a certain way, or amazing how just a delay to allow your brain to process something will change the outcome ultimately. I mean, you've probably said stuff to your wife, said stuff to my fiance before. God, I wish I could take that back and not have responded so quickly. Right. Same thing with shooting at a bull. It just take a little bit more time to let your brain process what's going on in front of you. Business decisions too, all that kind of stuff. So,
what's your most memorable video that you guys have done? Most memorable moment on video.
Boy, that's a tough one. Because I've got all of them, as you know, like part of the reason why we capture these is for the memories, right? I mean, you want to be able to go back and relive it without just thinking about it through your brain. I think maybe my most memorable video that we've done was our Sitka blacktail hunt, just because of the overall adventure of it. But I think as far as the elk stuff goes, honestly, it's one that we don't even have on our YouTube channel right now. And it's probably last year with Shannon shooting the Roosevelt that he did, because it's he's always had a goal.
That's on Destination Elk, right?
Yep. It is on Destination Elk. It was the first bull that was killed last season. I mean, I've been now hunting with him for, a decade or more, and he's always had a goal. I'm not a guy that sets goals on, inches or size or anything like that. I'm an experienced guy, so I want to have the interaction with the elk. That's my goal. Like that one that you saw at 4 yards, I want to have those kind of interactions. And he's been hung up on wanting to try to kill a 300-inch Roosevelt. And as you know, they exist, and there are a fair amount of them out there, but that doesn't mean that a lot of 300-inch Roosevelts get killed every year. Not nearly as many as the 200-inch class Roosevelt. So, last year we were able to finally complete his goal with that. I think the bull that he killed ended up taping out at 304. Watch somebody, So to watch somebody else, to watch somebody else get a goal like that. I'm not a selfish person. I don't need to be in the limelight by any stretch of the imagination. So I have no problem like saying that one of my most memorable moments was watching him do that, and seeing him process it through in real time and realizing that that bull's probably 300 inches, and then recognizing
That's
that
awesome, man.
he had killed it. And the funny thing was, it was actually on my birthday. And we technically weren't even supposed to be filming yet. Our camera guy was supposed to be getting in from North Carolina. Well, actually, he had been hunting with Corey and Donnie and was on his way, and he was getting there that day. And we were just out basically looking for animals to hunt for when Roy got there. And it just so happened to be that the bull that we ended up finding was just an absolute tank and there was no hesitation in, okay, we're going to actually hunt this bull. So we hadn't prepped or got ready to film for it. So I just kind of grabbed the camera and went for it. And I wish I had that to do.
I'm trying to find this. So this was episode 1?
No, it wasn't episode 1. It was just the first bull that was killed, and it should show a picture of Shannon with it on there.
Here, I'm going to show you my screen so you can help me find it, because I want to see that. That was a really cool moment.
And unfortunately, a lot of the cool stuff that happened after the fact gets edited out because those videos can't be, hours long on each one. Let's see here. Where are we at? Episode 5. No, go the other way. It should be like episode 3 or 4. Let's see. That's episode 2.
I know I watched it.
Yeah. It's definitely not 3. I think it might be on episode 2 because it was because we didn't have any great. You're not going to get. Yeah, try episode 2 because I don't. It's probably that one.
I think you're right.
And it'll be obviously towards the end of the video.
Loading.
No, now you're into them talking.
Okay, here we go.
That's it. So we usually have a rule of thumb that, we'll locate a bull and we're going to have to go 90 and they're going to come 10. So we'll go 90% of the way and they'll come 10%. You'll have to back up because this is after he's already shot it. If you want to see the shot, yeah.
Yeah, I do.
So we had stopped and we were just at tennis shoes. This is like when I set the camera up behind the rig to film. That was us getting ready. I mean, that was Shannon putting his boots on. We honestly were not in a situation here where we were actively really trying to find a bull to shoot. But the way this bull responded, you knew he was going to be a good bull. And he came across this reprod patch, and what you don't realize here is that we are 30 steps from the truck. Like we hadn't even gotten away from the rig and that bull was in our lap.
That's normal for Roosevelt hunters. So all you Rocky Mountain hunters, settle down a little bit.
Yeah, and he knew when he saw that bull that it was a good bull. So if I pan to the left right here, you can actually see the rig. But it died 67 steps from the truck. I mean,
no way.
Sometimes it just happens like that. Yeah, and we had picked out a red line, like we figured out where his travel route was at. We located him on the big timbered hillside across all this hemlock, which was like 10 or 15-year-old stuff and super thick. And when we started getting ready to go in there, Shannon just let out a little bugle, and that bull was like, we could hear him coming, and he was just running through that stuff. It was like, oh, this is going to happen like right now. So it ended up turning out that it was pretty cool that it died as close to the rig as it did. But we are so young. I mean, we're backpacked up. We've got gear for it being a late night because this is like 6 o'clock in the evening. And we're expecting that we're going to be out there for a long time. But this thing had been wallowing, and you could see how wet he is. But big crowned out right side. Super long main beams. But yeah, he taped out at 304.
Wow.
So that was a pretty special moment,
man.
It is, especially hunting the way that we do, because we don't do any preseason scouting. We don't spend a lot of time out targeting bulls and looking for the one. So everything we do is, kind of boots on the ground during the season. So you never really know that when that bull pops out that he's going to be 300 inches instead of 200 inches. And sometimes a 200-inch bull will act like a 300-inch bull, and a 300-inch bull will act like a spike. You just never know. So, yeah.
It's very difficult to, how do I say this? So public land, Roosevelt hunting, most of our public land on that's national forest has not been logged in 30 years. Most of
At
it.
least, yeah.
They still do log BLM sometimes, but a lot of the national forests, the big public areas around here are national forests, and they don't log it.
Yep.
So scouting is, if you're going to go scouting in the national forest where we hunt, you're basically just scouting for old rut sign. You're not like glassing for bulls. That does not, like, there's nowhere to glass.
Right.
it's just brush. But if you have access to, if you're hunting private timberland that's open to the public or whatever, and there's clear cuts, you can preseason scout. I do.
You can. Weyerhaeuser land, a lot of, Hancock, some of the stuff that's there on the coast. You can definitely scout that. But, we're primarily state, national forest, and BLM. And there you'll get very little clear cuts and stuff. So, that makes it tough. Even when we were bear hunting, we're finding bears and clear cuts, but we're not necessarily hunting the same stuff then than we are for during elk season. So it still doesn't really do you a whole lot of good. You're right.
Yeah. So I think the strategy that you guys have adapted to doing is very wise and obviously very effective. And I love it, man. I'm hoping to get in the woods with you for a couple days this year.
That would be awesome.
And maybe you can film me shooting my target bull, because I do have one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Our films, the way the stuff that we do, it's a little different than the style of other people's. Like, we're not out to make a hunting film. We make films of our hunts. So don't expect to get some, super edited, animated,
I like
really
that better.
Cool video. It's natural. It's raw. I think that I remember listening to you and Brian Call talk about on your podcast is that you guys did your 2-part really long series that you dual shared back and forth, was talking about, what your people consume, what they like, and people that like Brian Call stuff and the videos that he puts out, like, he puts it out and they enjoy it, and he does it for himself. Your content you put out, your podcast you put out, it's all stuff that you want to do. You don't need to make stuff for other people. So we don't make our films for other people. We make it so we can go back and watch them. We're not out there trying to become the next YouTube sensation, hunters. We don't want to be Hush. We don't want to be Born and Raised. We just want to make good, solid quality films, and then hopefully educate some people along the way, because there's a lot of strategy in what we do. So people get to see that in real time. We're not trying to hide anything. And it ends up making a film where people will we constantly get messages of people saying, "Hey, I really love your guys' content. Like, it's real, it's raw. It's like, I've experienced that," or, thanks for not having, all kinds of music in your stuff, or, trying to be too flashy with it. So it just makes people feel like they're there along on the adventure, which is great. And I enjoy that aspect of it too. And it makes editing a lot easier. Right? So there is that.
Well, I think it's way more relatable. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that people have, and believe me, I've produced many films that were really produced, some way overproduced. And after years of doing this, people just want shit they can relate to. They don't care how pretty it is. They really don't. They just want people. It just doesn't matter. Hey man, I gotta run here. Where can people watch your guys' stuff, follow you guys, all those things?
Yeah, Angry Spike Productions on Instagram is primarily where I post most of our content. We, not super active on there, but there's enough stuff. YouTube channel is just Angry Spike Productions, and then my personal stuff is just at Cory_D_Ford on Instagram, and I don't use Facebook. I just use Instagram for everything there. So I share my own personal journey stuff a little bit, not overhyped on Instagram, but then ASP stuff on there, and then Destination Elk,
awesome,
obviously 4 years of that too. So.
Are you guys doing that again this year?
I'm hoping. We haven't heard from Corey, but usually it's about now, and he reaches out and says, "Hey, we need to start getting film permits lined up and things like that." So then that's when I'll contact state forest people, and I would love to be back and involved, because it's just a really, really fun project to be a part of, and I like it. So I'm hoping.
Awesome, man. Well, you guys do an awesome job, and appreciate you coming on today. Let's do another one here in the next couple of weeks with you and Shannon.
Okay.
And let's watch some more videos. I like doing that.
Absolutely.
All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Go follow Angry Spike and Corey, and hopefully we get some time in the woods. We'll create some content this fall. Hey, man, would you mind leaving your browser up for a bit? See how it says 69% down uploaded by your name?
I can't see that on my side.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't show it on mine.
It's just once. Here, I'm going to stop recording, actually. With hunting season coming up so soon, there's never been a better time to get better at your craft. And the only way that you can do that is either by practicing it or learning from those that are considered the best. And there's no better place to do that than outdoorclass.com, where you sign up similar to masterclass and you learn from people like Randy Newberg, Remy Warren, Corey Jacobsen, and many others. And you learn how to do the things that they do so awesome. When you go there, go to outdoorclass.com, use code altitude, get 20% off your subscription, and you'll have access to these amazing classes. I think we should all be students our entire life. You never know enough. Put the ego aside, go learn, outdoorclass.com, use code altitude for a discount.